Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday, it is 4 p.m. Eastern, and that means it's time for Expert Momentum. And this is the overflow episode. There was so much that we talked about last week, and really talking about a topic that I don't think I've ever seen taught anywhere outside of direct experience, or somewhere that you aren't paying quite a bit of money to the tune of thousands of dollars to learn these types of details, these types of skills. And these are the things that, as I've mentioned, are areas that I learned over 11 years of doing events like this, over 11 years of painful experiences. As I said, for those of you who caught last week's replay, a lot of what's shared during this presentation today are the things that I learned over time, that really were painful, expensive mistakes. And some of these mistakes to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars in event costs, in money we shouldn't have paid, in fees, in mistakes. And that's like not even counting if we get into lost sales and things that should have happened or didn't happen, or really, again, there's like a whole horror story episode that I should do that's directly related to all the stuff that I'm talking about in this episode, because as I said, a lot of this represents years and years of terror that happen in event rooms. And I'm here to help you not have to go through that, to understand what to avoid, to understand how to set yourself up for success, and going beyond just planning. In fact, there's a whole other phase of event planning and event details that we can get into and that we can discuss on future episodes. And I know we will discuss them, since I want to discuss all aspects of the speaking business and the expert business, and how you become known for your mouth and your brain and the things that you do when you take a stage. So obviously I'll cover that. But we are continuing our journey, and I'm going to do a quick recap here. If you missed last week's episode, you can get all the latest episodes right on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Explore Momentum. You can also get them at exploremomentum.com. There's an entire category on the website now for Expert Momentum for you to go and get these episodes. And so I'm excited for all of you who go through this and realize, just how much there is here. For those of you, if you did watch this last week and you're watching again live, or you're watching this on the replay, let me know what questions you have, what you were wondering, what you want to know, if there's something specific that you want me to cover, or something specific going on with your event that we want to discuss, and I'm happy to discuss all of that good stuff with ya, my friends. So let's just dive right into it for today. Thanks for the love. I'm not sure who gave me the love, because I didn't have that window open at that time. But thank you for the love on the video, whoever's watching me out there. And let's dive right in. And as I said, we're going to start, as we do every week, with a little bit of review, because we're covering those biggest little details. But you notice that cover. For those of you who don't know who I am, or you're new to the page, or you've forgotten me, or maybe you're like in the movie Memento and you have short-term memory loss and you're like, I recognize that face, but I don't know what he said to me last week, so I have to tattoo it on my body to understand where it is that I have to go to remember who this guy is. That's why I show it every single week. My name's Ken Course. I am your host of Expert Momentum, the founder of Explore Momentum, on-course marketing, all of that good stuff. I have done a lot of business in event rooms, in the online space as well, and this figure doesn't even cover event space, so that figure would be higher. With teams and partners and companies I've worked with, we've all generated over $50 million in event rooms and made things happen. So if you're like, why should I listen to you talk about events? That's the reason why. Oh, Julia, thanks I love the banner behind you. The reason it's there is I'm going to talk about it, since we're talking about event staging and event details. And then I always mention this at the beginning of every lesson. I do talk fast. I'm not going to slow down. If you want me to stop and repeat something, please participate in the comments. Like I see Julia's out here today. Even if you're watching this on the replay, post in the comments. I'm super active on Facebook. I get that stuff on my phone. I get that stuff if I'm at Subway. Doesn't matter where I'm at, I'm going to be answering those comments. So you want to make sure, I'm feisty today, so this is going to be a good one. But got to make sure that you get your questions answered, you get value out of this. I know that I've got a lot to bring, but what do you have to bring? What would you like to see? And I know I'm going to deliver it fast. So if you want me to slow down, you have a question, you need clarification, make sure you ask me for that. And that's how it goes here on Expert Momentum. And so let's also talk about this organizer, because all of this is organized into a nice little ebook and an organizer that I put together. I've talked about this on previous weeks on Expert Momentum, but you need to get yourself a copy of this. It is 30 pages, combined information and organization. And this set of lessons actually there was one page in the book that's me talking about all the staging details and the set details for an event, which is where these hours of content of me talking about all of the stories and how it works and why those bullet points are so important. But I know you might need to get yourself a copy of this organizer, get your hands on it. You can fill it out. You can save a copy for yourself with all your details in it. It asks you plain English questions about how you're going to plan your event, how you're going to get through the staging phase, what you're going to talk about, what you're going to sell, all the little details. If you don't have it, it is completely free at exploremomentum.com/preview. Make sure that you head over there, get your copy if you don't have it, and download that bad boy, because that's what so much of this is about. But exploremomentum.com/preview, pick up your free copy of that, and let's roll. So for those of you who might have missed last week, or you're jumping in late, or you're poking in because you see me live and you're like, what's this guy on about? This is talking about what I would call the event set or the event staging page. And I'm going to move my camera down a little bit. So the event set or your event staging, I like to call it event set. Event staging is probably the more official, like formal name for it. It's basically your run through. It's like all the details that happen from the minute that you set foot at the event venue or at the location of your event through the minute that you set foot on stage. And this can be in an online format, so it could be for your webinar, like what happens when you sit down in the chair to start planning your webinar, all the way through when the webinar when you go on camera and you start speaking. This especially qualifies for events that you're running yourself, so all the details that you need to be putting in place. But this phase is really the phase a lot of times that determines whether or not your event is successful or not, or whether your event is profitable or not. Your profits can get eaten up by not doing the steps that I talk about here, and by staging errors or by set errors, are things that you just didn't think about coming in. And I know some of this blends in with event planning, but event planning, when someone talks about that, normally is a really specific thing. Like, it is an industry in and of itself. That's why I don't like to use the term event planning for this, because event planning is like, where is your venue? What are the chairs in the room? It's working with the hotels, it's finding or the locations, it's finding your space. So this isn't necessarily event planning as much as it is, thank you Windows for that notification, but this isn't as much event planning as it is event staging or event set. So this is your run through to make sure that all those things are in place. And the most important details that I'm talking about, and I spend a lot of time, almost disproportionate on this training, talking about your in-person events or your offline events, or your, when you're standing on a stage in front of people. But this matters for any event, because there's this critical phase, and this can be 30 minutes to 90 minutes to, even a few hours, sometimes the night before this event staging part starts. But this really is so important to be thinking about, all right, how are you making sure that you're doing things in order, that your details are in line? And so let's do a quick review, because I'm going step by step, and I want to spend a little bit of time just reviewing what we talked about last week. So obviously, step one, in order, you got to have your event goal. And so if you want to see me break this down, a whole hour of content around these first 3 steps, make sure you watch the replay from last week. But you got to have a goal. What do you want to accomplish with your event? If you're capturing leads, if you're making sales, if you need to hit a sales number, if you have a goal for, people joining your community, whatever your event goal is, know what your goal is before, so that you can work backwards, or set your goal the minute you set foot on site. You see the room. And for some people, I know you need that. You need the energy of like, all right, now I'm at the venue, I'm at the hotel, I'm standing in a conference room, whatever. This is where I set my goal. That's totally okay. You just have to have a goal. So whatever your goal is, you got to have that in place first. Then step 2, we talked a lot about support, and I'm going to talk even more about support this week. But what is everyone that is at the event doing for you? And this is where I spent the bulk of our time last week, is understanding your various event support roles, who's going to be on site. And I know a lot of times you're the only person, so you're wearing all of these hats the minute that you step on stage, and that you've got to be handling all those things. But it's always better to have support. I'm actually going to talk about another really specific support role today that I didn't reference in this section, which is, kind of its own island in and of itself. It's actually how I started in events as well. but you got to make sure that you know what everyone who's there to support you is doing at any given time, and they understand their roles. Because again, the worst thing that can happen in an event is if your team isn't backing you up, or your team isn't there when you need them, or someone that's supposed to be doing a certain role is not the best fit for that role. Like I used the registration desk example last week of having, someone that's not a people person as the first person that someone sees when they walk into your event. You don't want that to happen. So you need to have the right people in the right place. The people at your reg table should be your shiny, happy first impression people. The people that are at the sales table should be understanding what the role is and how to work with people that are coming in and out of what they're doing. So all those things are really, really critical. Who's doing what, who's wearing what hats, and there are plenty of ways to plan, and we're actually going to give a tool for that again today to talk about that. And then finally, I talked about order form and sales process. I think that actually needs to be a separate lesson in and of itself. I mean, really, sales training is something that there are so many people around the world that do entire massive programs on sales training, especially event sales training. I have my style that I do and that I want to share and talk about, that's kind of brought together from a lot of mentors and people I've worked with and things that I've seen that have worked. So we'll definitely talk about that in future episodes, but we talked a lot about it last week. So again, those are our first 3 steps. So now we've obviously got to move on to step 4, and there's many more steps to cover actually in the event staging process. But step 4, and that people have asked why I had that banner behind me. It was kind of a mystery that I had the banner behind me last week. It's not my new set, but this is my pop-up banner that I have behind me that I use for events. So step 4 for your event staging is you got to think about all of the things that you're going to have on site, from your physical products to your decorations to your printouts. What do you need to have that's sitting on your stage or sitting on your sales table? And I want to give a couple of examples, because I know for some of you, you may not be a graphic designer. You might not have somebody that you can work with at this point that's doing the banners for you, or for your very first event, especially if you're going to someone else's event or you're going to be hosted in that space and you may not have your book done yet, or you may not have physical product, like all your stuff is digital. Like I'm a person where that's my issue. Almost all of my product is digital product, and almost all of my work is working with people directly or working with people in event rooms. So I don't have a ton of physical product. And a lot of people think, oh, well, physical product is a thing of the past. People don't want CDs. People don't want USB drives. And actually, it's exactly the opposite. More and more these days in event rooms, and I'm sure Julia, if you're still out there watching this, can vouch for this, people love to have something in their hand. People want to walk up to your registration table or your sales table and at the very least see a sign that says, all right, I'm in the right place. I know where I'm going. Sometimes the hotels will provide you, or the conference facilities will provide you with signs, or they'll put you as like the third itty bitty bullet on the screen when you walk by in between all of their advertising and stuff. But really, what's so important about this is you have to be prepared the best you can. So whether you have a big old banner like this, and I'll show this off in a second, but I want to go with the low-tech option for a lot of you, and a lot of you first. And this feeds into one massive golden tip, and I underline it. I put emphasis in between each word, but control your environment. You want to be a master of your space, and you want to have it set as much as you can. So for any of you who have ever been around major speakers in the industry, people that make 6 and 7 and 8 figures in sales at events, one thing you will learn about every single one of them is that they follow this rule. They control their environment. What is on the stage? What is on the tables in front of them? What is sitting on the sales table or the registration table? What do people see when they walk in the room? It is so, so critical. And Julia does say, good point on that yes, they do. Events bags with stuff are fun. People love stuff. This bookshelf full of books is mostly books that clients and customers and people over the years have given me. There's a few of them that are mine in there, especially the weird books like Weird Michigan. But a lot of those are gifts from people, or books that friends published, books that people I know have in there. But, very true. People want stuff. And it plays into this control your environment factor. Now, there are obviously things in the environment that you can control and things that you can't control, but anybody that understands the event industry or the expert industry understands how critical it is to micromanage those little details of what's around you, because clutter throws people off or gives the wrong impression. Not having products or banners or things that you need, even printouts that you need, can really hurt you in the sales process. I gave a tip last week about making sure that the specific event details are covered, whether they're on your order form or whether they're on a sales page if you're doing an online event. The details need to be handy so that you can focus your conversation on the objections. And the same thing is true with your environment. If your environment is out of control, people tend to focus their mind and their energy on what's going on around them rather than on what you're saying or what you're showing them or what you're teaching them or what you're selling them or your call to action or whatever it is. So you have to manage your environment as much as humanly possible. Distractions are the killer of sales. And clutter is the killer of sales, or the killer of goals. It kills your opt-ins. So a little bit goes a long way. So obviously banners or stage backdrops. So a lot of you may not have that stuff to start. And as I mentioned, the sooner that you can start to put these things in place, if you're someone that's going to speak or you're going to do events a lot, even a banner like this. So this banner behind me, I love this banner. It's, it looks like something that would be super duper expensive. And actually I got this banner for under $50. So people may not realize that you can get printouts from sites, and I'll show some of these that are nice, high quality pop-up stand banners like this one. And this one is quite tall as well. It's kind of tough to see because I can't move my camera too much, but this one is quite tall, as you can see. We've got, our expert momentum. It goes to the floor. It has the testimonials and all that stuff. So even if that's sitting on a stage next to me at this point, that banner looks great. And if I'm standing at a chamber meeting or a Rotary meeting or something in my community, that's a great banner because it rolls up into this tiny itty bitty bag. So it's not much bigger than, if you're walking around with some paper, that you would use for, a tube, with paper presentations or that kind of thing. It rolls up into a very small thing. Books or physical products. So as I mentioned, I don't have a book yet, and I'm working on that actually with my great friend Karen Strauss. We'll be talking about that as the year goes on, because she's the queen of getting those books published and helping people with that. So I know she'll be on future episodes of this. But when you don't have books or physical products, printed flyers or order forms are a great, super affordable way to keep things cheap. And I said displays if you know how to need to keep it cheap. So I brought some examples that I'm going to show. It's show and tell time with Ken. So this is an example. This cost me 39 cents to print this color flyer, or 50 cents. And I bought this stand on Amazon. So I'll try to kind of show this off. This is for the Your Momentum Now, how to create your book funnel package, which I offered at Author 101 when I was a speaker there. And again, I didn't have a book. I didn't have a physical package. So I made this flyer. This is probably a web page I did this on, or Microsoft Word. You can do this on Google Docs, with some images and all that stuff. It has the event start date on it in big letters. As I said, it's kind of hard to see with the reflection on the light. But this is just a printed flyer and a stand that cost me like $5 on Amazon. So maybe you don't have $5. Maybe you got $2 or whatever that you have around. So this is another example that I have right here of you can print even smaller ones. So you can print 4 of these, or no, these are 2 of these to a page. And you can get these itty bitty stands that you have right here. So this is one for the Your Momentum Now community that many of you are part of my Your Momentum Now community, both free and paid, that you have in here. And so again, I could print 2 of these on a stage. This little package of plastic stands, again, came from Amazon at this point, and they cost $2 a piece or something like that. This one actually came in a pack, so I think I paid $10 for bunches of them. But just having these 2 things on a table, on my reg table or on my sales table, that are talking about here's what's to come, here's what I'm going to offer, here's what it looks like. Super duper cheap ways that make a big impression. And what we have here, I see that someone left a comment, so I'm trying to find where that comment is right now. But there's many different ways that you can get these things done for extremely affordable prices. Actually, let me make my, what I realized as I was showing them in my tiny window. So let me show them. Let me make myself larger that we've got here. So yeah, we've got, this is like an 8.5 by 11. I should have turned off my PowerPoint when I was doing this. this. So here's an 8.5 by 11 of that event flyer for the book funnel program that we were doing. Here's one on the community. And for this event, since my key offer, you'll notice one of the things about my printouts is my key offer for this event was the how to create your book funnel, where I was teaching people how to turn their book into a marketing funnel. And so that's referenced on all of my stuff, even on the free stuff that they have the option to do, or those types of things. I'm referencing the offer that I'm going to make and what we're doing here, which is really critical. Salman says, this is what I do for a living. I love it. So this will really help you making sure that you've got this set up. And for those of you who've never hosted an event and who are like, oh, do I have to spend hundreds of dollars on products or books or printing or any of that stuff? No, you can get a lot of these things done very, very nicely at a very, very low cost. It doesn't cost that much for you to do that. And then here's another one with a former company, an event that I used to work with for Lead Gen Lab. Again, just another example of that printed little flyer that we can put here in these. And for those of you who are like, I don't have the graphic skills, I just have the copy, or I might have a logo, or I might not even have that, Fiverr.com, for those of you who don't use Fiverr.com, you should be looking at Fiverr.com to get things like that done. It's a great resource for those of you that just don't have any ability for this. So for $10 to $15 that you invest in your event, it can be the difference between you making sales and not making sales at an event. Because so many people will just walk into an event, sometimes even without their flyers or their order forms or their event details or any of that stuff that's going on. So Salman says design banners, flyers, logos on t-shirts. So great. That's a great resource. Thank you for letting people know. If you see that and you're watching live, you can connect and get that done for you. But for a lot of you, it's that investment of $10 to $20 to get these little paper stands and put nice color printouts. Like I said, these are just paper that are in here. It's nothing special. Makes a big impression, even if you don't have the books or the physical product, because people can walk in, and when they're waiting around or they're on breaks or they're curious or you're talking to another person, which is really the key, people are going to be looking at all of this printout stuff that you have sitting around. People are going to know a little bit more about you and what you want them to do. And then when you have a big banner like this, which again can be an extremely affordable thing, this might be something that you put on a stage next to you. It just gives you an authority and a positioning and an expertise that stands out from someone that doesn't have it. Now, you don't have to go crazy doing this. I've been to I've had a lot of vendor booths and tables over the years that I've done, or trade shows that I've done over the years. And some people, you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on booth setups and stuff like that. But even this alone distinguishes you. And these types of banners are super duper cheap to create. As I mentioned, this one was under $50. I think it was $40 to get this one done. And it's beautiful and what we got going there. So get those types of things ready for you. You can even do it on a low budget. It's not a tough thing to do. So if you need to keep it cheap, that's totally fine. And then, as I said, wear a shirt with your logo on it. I put 3 question marks. But if nothing else, for now, anything that gives you the positioning of being more legitimate. So especially during your first gig, the cheapest way, as I said, is to print out those little flyers. So print some flyers at Kinko's, or at your local FedEx, or get them sent to you online, whatever it is that you need to do to get those things done and to get those little stands or something like that. It just goes a long way, gives you more authority. It gives you the ability to have people look at details without you having to share them with them. People will look at it. People might have questions related to that, but a little bit goes a long way. So even these 4 things, as you can see, and I actually have a few more of those stands. I think it came 8 to a pack or something like that. So I printed out 3 pages. So, for the grand total of about $20, I had all of these things that went on my table, and it made my table look a lot more authoritative at the show, as well as on the back table when people were working with me. So whatever you can do to establish that positioning is super critical. And I know people, again, who have built entire brands or entire companies about paying a lot of attention to this, like a speaker I worked with for many years who, was very focused on the visual branding on the shirts and things like that. So a little bit goes a long way in control your environment. The more that you think about where will people look, where will people, what will people be looking at when they're on their breaks? What will people be doing while they're waiting to talk to you at the back table? What will people be looking at when, they're not looking at you for a second when they're standing on stage? And ideally you want to, be thinking about that so you can say, all right, they're looking there. I want to put my banner there so that people, might read it or walk up to it and look at it. So that gives them more of a chance of hitting my goal, whether it's an opt-in goal, sales goal, whatever it is. So really critical to be thinking about that. Perception in an event is everything. It is everything. First and foremost, the fact that you're willing to get up on a stage or stand up in front of a group of people is a thing that 2/3 of the population never want to do. Most people never want to get on a stage and speak. Most people fear that more than death, to get up on a stage and speak. So just that fact alone, that you're willing to be the expert, you're willing to put yourself out there, you're willing to have that conversation, helps. And the more that you have these little details in order, these little pieces, and if you have physical products, if you have physical books, if you have those things, it can make a big difference. But the bigger the show looks, the more likely people are to look at you as an authority, because that's the goal. Is you want them to see you as the expert, you want them to see you as, the go-to, you want them to see you as that person. And this can make a huge deal, even if you're not in a great space, or you're in a weird room, or you're in a tiny table at a vendor expo. Those little touches still make a big difference, and it makes people take you seriously. But perception at an event is everything. So it's so important to be thinking about that, and that's why controlling your environment is so important. Even the stuff you can control, because if it's somebody else's event, sure, you're not going to be able to walk in and post your banners wherever you want, or throw stuff around, or maybe even change the back table. You won't have that. So even these little touches, being prepared for the little area you can control, setting one of those on the stage next to the other products, or putting one and referencing it, just having it with you makes a big difference. And perception at these events is everything. So let's talk about online and webinars, because controlling your environment there is really important. As you see, I have this environment behind me, but what's your backdrop? So too many times the things that kill online opt-ins or registrations or sales are the fact that people have bad backdrops and they're not well lit. Or they do the cardinal mistake of working on a webcam or a tablet or even a cell phone, like sitting in front of an open window, which makes the light behind you really bright, and it makes you look washed out, and your camera looks bad. So what your backdrop is and are you well lit is super important. Like, don't film your expert videos in front of your pile of dirty laundry or in front of your clothes hamper. And if that's the only space you've got, that's the only space you've got. It's okay. Own it if that's what you have to do. So if it's like, I have to film this in my laundry room because it's the only space I have enough room to hold out my camera or whatever, you should mention that and take that on. Like, don't ever, if that's what you got, that's what you got. Own it. But if you can, again, control your backdrop and control whether you're well lit. And again, good lighting does not have to cost you a ton of money. In fact, with LED lighting, those costs have gone way down. There's great lighting options for under $20. The cheapest way is just to do desk lamps with, white, not colored LED lights in them, which you can, just get those and kind of point them at you so you're well lit, and your camera settings now will automatically adjust. Or you can get ring lights, which you mount right on the top of your computer, which those are about $20, and you can put them right around your webcam, and that gives you nice light on your face. Or you can be like me and have a crazy huge light, because I do other video, I do professional video, so I have above my head lighting, and you can do it that way. So backdrop and well lit are the two biggest things, and for the most part, phones are sophisticated enough these days, or webcams are sophisticated enough that they automatically adjust. So you don't have to spend a ton of time thinking about it, as long as you have plenty of light on in the room and that you're not sitting in front of an open window, or your backdrop is something that you're happy with. And if you can't, again, control it. Put a banner behind you, print out one of those things and set up a table and put that behind you, just so it looks a little bit better. Does it look professional? Obviously, if you're trying to get someone to buy something, you want it to look as professional as you can. If you absolutely can't do that, then don't show up on camera, which I know a lot of people say, can you still get away with that these days? Absolutely, especially with webinar format. You don't necessarily have to be on camera, but it does help you. If you can, use fancier elements or upgrade your broadcast. So if you can use PowerPoints, if you can use like I use with the lower thirds and those types of things and the titles, that all really helps. And do you have support material that you're going to be referencing or you're going to be using? Really critical here to say, all right, do you have those things in place? Because again, all of those things should support you. Now, keep in mind, and I know this will be another focus for conversation in the future, PowerPoint in particular, but you want to make sure that your PowerPoint is helping you and not distracting from you, or not taking away from you, or making you look worse. And I know we'll talk about that when we're talking about stage etiquette and speaking skills and all those things we'll be talking about over the weeks. But really important to say, if you have your support material, have it all together, have it as ready to go as you can. And one thing that is common on the online events or with the technology events, and I know those of you watching that have been there before, is like a lot of times when stuff goes wrong, or your guest is late, or your PowerPoint's not pulling up right, sometimes people get totally thrown off their game when that happens. Like the technology goes wrong and it's the end of the world, and it affects the whole webinar, and they get in a bad mood, and they start yelling, or they're like, I've seen people start yelling at the technology when that happens. But just play it off with stride. If you're not a techie person and the tech is giving you issues, like, again, try to kind of control yourself and understand, like, it's not the end of the world. Crack a joke about it, let people know what's happening, try not to get too upset if things don't go perfectly. Anything that humanizes you like that or makes you look like a human being is actually a good thing. It doesn't hurt you. So if you're not technical, you can say, like, look, I'm not technical, I don't normally do this, but since I want to give you so much value today, that's why I'm doing this for you. So for a lot of you, don't let technology be a barrier. Don't let it distract from you, take away from what you're doing. Really important in the online or the webinar space. All right, so step 5. In this one, I'm shocked that I have to say it out loud, but the truth is, after many, many years of being at events and many, many years of working with, 8-figure speakers all the way down to newbie speakers, taking care of your people. And this includes your attendees, your volunteers, your staff, you, which is another big one. You gotta take care of your people. And most people seem to forget about that, like in the event planning process or the staging process. Like, sometimes they forget, like, oh, I plan to deliver content that's going to take me 12 hours, and I didn't plan to feed anyone, or I didn't plan a bathroom break for anybody, or I'm going to strap people into the chair at this point, and make them suffer for hours while I deliver them my content. But in your event agendas, which I'm going to talk about in a second, you have to give time for taking care of your people. So you have to think about meals, you have to think about beverages, you have to think about breaks, especially for people that might have to check in with their work or check in with other people. You've got to think about how you're going to take care of your people, and that has to be built into your event staging process. It has to be built into your agenda to say, how am I going to take care of my people? And a lot of the time, when you take care of your people, it automatically improves the result of your event, because to them, the event just seems seamless. So I'm sure for those of you who have attended a conference or an event before, you've probably been at one that just felt like it went on forever, and it's dragging, and you're ready to fall asleep, and there's no breaks, and you're there from 7 in the morning until 11 in the evening. And then you go to events that just feel seamless, where, you're talking to people, there's activities, there's plenty of time to get up, get down, you're not worried about going to the bathroom, you don't need something to drink, whatever it is, you got to take care of your people. And so the more you think about that coming into the event, the more likely you are to have better results. And this is true in the online space too. Take care of your people by, again, informing them. What is the schedule? When are breaks going to be? When do they need to eat? That stuff all needs to be built into what you're doing. And so the more you plan the attendees' experience and you think about their experience, so think about what it's like to sit in the chair, the better. And if you haven't attended other events or other meetups or other conferences or other things recently, get on that. You want to do that because you want to sit in that attendee chair and figure out what you notice, especially with people that do it really well. Because people that do this really well understand that event experience from end to end. And when you're at that event, you don't feel exhausted. You have plenty of time to talk to people. Things are going well. So you want to sit in that chair, and this is helpful to do for those of you who've never done an event before. Like, even sit in pick an attendee chair and just sit there and visualize the walkthrough of the event, if you have time to do this, while you're there. Like, think about your attendees' experience. What are they doing? What are they thinking about? What are they wondering about? What are they curious about? The more you plan for their experience and think about what is it going to be like for them to sit in the attendee chair, what are you expecting them to get? Are their needs met and taken care of? The more likely you are to get what you want, which is, sales, opt-ins, referrals, partners, teammates, whatever it is that you want from your event. The more you think about how you're going to accommodate the person, and then you think about what your goals are and bring those two together, the better off that you're going to be. And so let me give you some important tips about this, because this is about how you take care of your people. But sometimes thinking about how you're going to take care of people can actually save you some money, can get you better event space, can get you resources, those types of things. Now, keep in mind the event, especially when it comes to those of you that do events in hotels or conference centers, or you might even use an agent. You might do events that are away from home, where you're doing a lot of these things. Events and logistics for events change all the time. So some of these things, your mileage may vary depending on who your agent is or who you're working with or any of that stuff. But Some important things to keep in mind. So a lot of times venues want to sell you food and beverage. They want to give you coffee. They want to give you snacks. They want to give you that stuff. And a lot of times people will wipe out your charge for the facility in exchange for some food or for some coffee or for something like that. So for the most part, if the event space is sitting empty, now this is not always true in expensive areas, but for those of you, that have, a local hotel and they have a local conference room, most hotels find it way more profitable to sell food and beverage and to sell amenities than they do to sell the space itself. So many venues will do things to trade. Doesn't ever hesitate to ask when you're thinking about what your final hotel bill is going to be or your final venue cost is going to be. Same thing is true. A lot of times you can get free speaking or event space, like here in Boston. I know some speakers that actually use co-working spaces, and they go to those co-working spaces and they understand that if they offer a trade, like they let the co-working space do an advertisement or tell people about what they're doing, many venues will trade for food, for beverage, for their service, those types of things. Event space needs to be booked out way far in advance. In fact, I would recommend if you're planning, a hotel conference center style event, a lot of times you need to make sure that you're focused on the event calendar. Like for the most part, it's really difficult unless you have great connections or you've done it before or you've worked with people a lot to book out your event space. Most of the time, you're going to be looking at a 6-month minimum window. 3 months is really tight if you're trying to do it, but it's somewhat doable depending on your market. 6 months is great, but most venues now are booking out as far as 12 months in advance. So you've got to keep that in mind, and your event planning process starts way in advance. So you want to be thinking about that. So control your environment. I put that in again, but pay attention to time. This is something so many people do badly is they forget, like, okay, my event started at 9, it's 2 o'clock, I haven't taken a break, everyone needs to go to the bathroom, everyone needs a cup of coffee, everyone needs water, there are kids screaming in the distance, there are wolves howling, everyone needs to stand up and stretch out their legs, they're screaming. Pay attention to time. You should know what your time is. And in general, my suggestion to you, I know this can be, your mileage may vary significantly depending on what type of event, but in general, about 90 minutes is the most that anybody can take in a learning segment or in a segment of your event. So about 90 minutes, is the most that you can sit them in the chair and talk at them, about here's my presentation, those kinds of things. And even that feels a little much to me. I like to break it up at least, every half an hour to 60 minutes, get people up, get them interactive, do something experiential. The more you think about that time and you understand like, wow, we've been sitting here for a long time, or people are bored or uncomfortable or sick of the chair or whatever it is, you got to pay attention to that time and think about, again, the person that's watching you. Use your breaks as sales prep or selling times. So a lot of times you want to be seeding your sales on the breaks, or you want to be making sales or collecting opt-ins or reaching towards your event goals when you're there. And you want to do this during your online events as well. So if you're doing a longer virtual event, then a lot of times if you have a break, you might stick around, or if you have teammates that are there to stick around, can continue conversation with those people who want to sit around or have questions or need more. But a lot of times your break times are sales times. So this is an issue I see with a lot of people that are new to events, and especially people who have support on events. Some people think that the event break time is their break time. So they go, all right, I'm getting off stage, I'm the speaker, that's my break time. Now the speaker might need a break. You might need to get off stage, go to the bathroom, have a cup of water, get some tea, whatever. This is why you need help, and I told you all you're going to need help. If you do this, you're going to need an assistant. You're going to need someone, on site to help you, whoever can do it. The speaker might get a little break. But for the most part, break times are on times at events. So if you have event team that are helping you, they need to take breaks while you are on stage speaking. They need to take breaks while you are not in the groove. If your event team is on a break when the participants are on a break, that's a huge, huge problem. You need to make sure that your team is working with the people on their breaks, directing traffic. Where are the bathrooms? Where's food? Where's the question? I'm looking at the flyer, standing around the sales table. Those are on times for your event team. So make sure that they know that if they need to break, they need to make a phone call, they have a meeting, they have an appointment, whatever, they have to run for something. Those are happening during times when you, the speaker, are on stage managing your stuff, because you don't want them to do that. I see I have a comment. I'm just checking in on that real fast. I know Saman is laughing, but it's totally true. The break times are the event staff's on times, so they need to understand that coming in. And then if you're going long, this is a big thing, and this is something you really start to develop intuitively over time as you do events or as you speak on stages or those types of things. Pay attention to whether your audience is kind of tuning out or not. And you can feel it once you've done this long enough. I know it sounds really strange, but you can feel what's going on in the crowd if you notice, like, people are starting to get restless, or lots of people are kind of getting up and leaving the room, or, you know, people, you'll feel the energy at this point of people going like, all right, it's time for a break, or we're bored with this content, or it's not working for us. If you notice that happening, lots of people in the back of the room chattering, people getting up and walking away, lots of bathroom breaks, lots of doors opening and closing, lots of restlessness, you either need to move off that topic or you need to get down and directly engage your people. Like, engage your crowd. Even if it's 10 people, you will know it. And then it becomes the sixth sense in some ways of you're going to be watching for that and managing that. What's going on with your people? Again, that's another factor in control your environment, but it's also in take care of your people. Julia asks a good question. What do you offer to paid sponsors aside from a table in the back of the room? That's a great consideration. Not exactly related to this, but it's a great question, so I'm going to answer it. So this depends on the structure of your event. I'll deal with this even more when we talk about event agenda in a minute here, because we're going to talk about agendas. But if you're going to have sponsors for your event, even if it's, little sponsors that are paying you $50 for a table in the back of the room or something like that, as Julia mentions, you've got to have an incentive for them. So for sometimes you might just be giving them space. They may just have a table. They're responsible for bringing all their stuff. They're responsible for their needs. But sponsorships can mean everything up to having banners on your stage with their logos on them. Sponsors could mean that they have printed logos. Like if you have this printed material that I show you, you might have a sponsored by, in a printed logo. You'll see it in programs or agendas all the time that sponsors have time there, all the way through to a lot of times the reason why sponsors want to sponsor events is because they get speaking time. And that speaking time could be anywhere from 5 minutes all the way through to 90 minutes, depending on the level of sponsorship. And when you become really sophisticated in events, sponsors are a great way to cover all your costs for the event. So you can get sponsors that will help you pay the venue fee, pay the AV, pay the team, get people to support you. Sponsorship is a phenomenal way to make up your cost. And so if you're coming into an event with very, very little on the line, and just supporting your sponsors, supporting your people, doing the staging set part really well, then a lot of times you can offer them that. So you can offer a sponsor visual sponsorship, a table, speaking time, lunches. You'll see a lot of events. Sponsors might host a lunch where, during the lunch hour, they buy lunch for all the people that want to stay and they do a presentation for them. You can do that with sponsors. You can offer them all sorts of different things, from visual stuff to talking to all that. Sponsorships are phenomenal, especially when you're willing to do all the work to put it in to do the event and to host the event. And this is true online as well. I know plenty of people online who have sponsorship from various companies, to wear their logos, to do what they do, that kind of thing. But that's a great question. Thank you for that. And very true. Sponsorships are a consideration. I didn't really talk about them a bunch here, but I'll talk about them more when we get to agenda. So this one I'm going to go through quicker, but this is another thing about venues and event management that most people just don't think of until they're there. I've seen speakers that walk into an event and they have not thought about their technology at all. I have seen speakers that have spent days and days working on their PowerPoint only to forget that they don't have a projector or a screen in the room, or there's no TV there, or there's no planning for the technology in AV, so they have nowhere to plug it in. So then they can't use their PowerPoint. Big problem. So technology and AV, you got to have those things on lock. And as I mentioned, when it comes to venues, whether it's a co-working space, a hotel, a dedicated event space, a church, a bank, whatever it is that you're going to do your event, you've got to consider technology and AV. And almost every single venue is very happy to charge you exorbitant amounts of money, huge amounts of money, in order to cover the AV costs. And many places actually use outside contractors that cost you even even more in terms of event expenses and event costs. So if you don't think about technology in AV before the minute you walk in the door, that's a mistake. And I would recommend for anybody that's going to be serious about being a speaker long term, you want to have all these things bought. You want to buy your own setups. It's cheaper at the end of the day. So people say, oh, I don't want to buy a projector. I don't want to buy a mic. I don't want to buy a clicker. I don't want to buy those things. It's actually a heck of a lot cheaper to have your own everything. My bag, whenever I go to anything at this point, I have my AV set. So I think about it. I'll carry a mic. I'll carry a clicker, a PowerPoint presenter mouse. I'll carry, some people, you can even carry little mini projectors now. You never know when you're going to present. So have your technology in order. Most venues charge you a lot. This is a golden tip, but most venues, you would be shocked at how much they're going to charge you for a projector, a screen, a microphone, a mixer. Many venues for even a 90-minute event or a 3-hour event will charge you thousands of dollars for a projector, for a microphone to use to patch into their sound system. The cords, they'll charge you $100 a cord. I'm not kidding. You will pay these venues. For those of you out there who've done this before, I see some of you have liked this video. You could pay thousands of dollars just because you forgot your mic cord or you forgot your mouse or you don't have your screen. If you have to pay for all of those things in your first event, that could put you out of business before you even start. Like when the hotel walks up or the venue walks up and they hand you a $10,000 bill, you'll go, oh my God, especially if you're selling, a $500 product or something like that, or it's your first event. So things you probably need for what you're doing. You got to have a projector and a screen or a TV. Like depending on where you are, if you're in a boardroom, you might use a TV. You gotta have somewhere to put your presentation. If you have a presentation, if you're not gonna have a presentation, you normally still want to have some sort of visual reference. I recommend an easel with a whiteboard or a marker board, or even sticky notes that you put on the wall. So a lot of co-working spaces let you draw on the walls, whatever it is. You gotta have visual material. You need visuals for visual people. I'm a very vocal and mental person, but I still understand you gotta have those visuals. So really important to have that. Gotta have your microphone. Most people underestimate how loud they talk. I talk really loud, and even me, I need a microphone most of the time because you never know how it's gonna sound in a room. Music. So if you want music, like you want to plug in your phone, you want to play some music, during the breaks or whatever, you gotta have that thought about. You gotta have your cord for your phone to play the music. Cameras. So this one I put in big bold letters. Record your stuff. Every time you take a stage, record your stuff. Have a tripod for your phone. Record your stuff. Get a nice camera. Record your stuff. Whenever you step foot on a stage, and this is the biggest issue that most people have, I don't care if you're speaking for 2 seconds, get pictures, get video. Video's even better because you can pull your pictures out of it if you have to. Record your stuff. In a worst case scenario, if you can't do that, I have some videos of me where I literally took my phone and I put it on the floor in front of me and recorded terrible view of me speaking up or just audio. Record your stuff. Capture your material. You can use it and repurpose it in so many different ways. I'll talk a lot more about that on future lessons. You want to have a few tables in the back. Almost always you're going to need some tables in the back for people to sign up, buy stuff, whatever. You got to have your tables. If you have sponsors, like Julia mentioned, you got to have tables for them. So you normally need a few tables, and those tables can't just be like bare wood tables. Most venues have horrible tables, so you want to make sure that, especially if you're at a hotel or you're at a place, that they dress the tables or they have tablecloths. I used to carry tablecloths with me because you don't want ugly tables with your stuff sitting on it. Chairs for your people. Avoid desks. So for the most part, if you're going to do a live event, I would almost never do it with big tables or desks. They are the ultimate distraction. You can do this in a working room or a workshop room, but desks distract. Theater-style seating is normally the way to go, especially if you have a call to action, meaning no tables, no desks. You don't want people having their laptops out. You don't want people on their phone. You don't want people being distracting. Remember, control your environment. Even better than that, if you're doing a workshop, have people in circles. You typically, during an event, even if it's a working event, whenever possible, avoid having people on their phones and their computers. Have them turn that stuff off when they walk in. People will want to have them turn that stuff off as much as you possibly can. A stage if you want it. A lot of you might want a stage so that you're elevated, especially if you're short. I know that sounds really strange, but if you're short and people can't see you and they're a couple rows back and you're tiny, you got to have a stage. So if you want a stage just because you like it and it helps you move around, it helps you have a better energy, you got to be thinking about that. And then places to put your decorations. So you might need like a small round table or a long table that you have on the stage or behind you while you're speaking. You might have your tables in the back where you put your decorations or your products or those kinds of things. Or if you're going to hang stuff on the walls, which again, hotels can charge you for this, or venues can charge you for this, for hanging stuff on the walls, you want to make sure like you bring stuff that doesn't damage a wall, that's not tacks, that's not nails, that's not any of that stuff. Bring your own stuff. Putty, like the sticky putty can be really good. Tape, really good. Anything that doesn't mess up the walls or mess up the venue, you're probably going to need those things. So buy your own. And for the most part, all of these put together for, if you're doing nicer mics and stuff like that, or nicer projectors, which I recommend as you become a better speaker, you can get a whole kit of these things for around probably $500 US right now. With how much these have dropped for the nicer setup, you're probably going to pay about $1,000, maybe $1,500, but that's one event generally in venue cost, or less than one event, and you can reuse your material and your stuff over and over and over again. So you need to have all those things thought about. Step 7, your event agenda. Again, I can do a whole event on this. I'm going to focus on the staging part of this, and then we'll talk about event agendas and how to construct them and how to do all that stuff going forward, because there's a science to event agendas, which is really important, and my face is in the middle of that text, so let me move my fat head out of the way. Putting together your event agenda, so let's think about that. These are the important pieces for your staging to be thinking of. You need time to set up. Most people don't plan for this. They don't plan for their staging time. These whole 2 weeks of lessons are you talking about planning for your staging time. Make sure you have time to get set up. You gotta have time to interact or welcome your guests or participants. So time for registration, time to say hello to people, time for them to meet you, time for them to meet the team. Like, you wanna have some open time where people come in and they talk to each other and they meet each other, and you gotta have time planned for that. So don't just plan to, say, all right, registration is at 8:55 and the event starts at 9. You wanna have a little time. Event opening time. So almost everyone's always going to be late. You want to have some time for an MC or for those types of things to do things. I'm going to talk about the MC in a second. Speaking slots and break time. So if you're going to have multiple speakers, what are their slots? Make sure the speakers know. Make sure the speakers know. And I talked about timing and support staff in the previous week, so that's really important. Specific sales times and how you will be supported. I can't reiterate this enough. Make sure if you have support, they're in the room. If it's someone else's event, make sure they know when you're going to be going into your offer and what it is and how they need to help you. So even if it's not your team, you can get other team and people to help you. And your sequence and your order needs to make sense. I'm going to do a whole lesson, as I said, in the future on event agendas, because there's so much that goes into them. For those of you that have been to events, they're choreographed. And I'll talk about what that choreography is, because it's really critical to your event agendas. Then some things to consider. So the speaker order, it really matters, and it should take a lot of thought. You got to understand that who goes on in what order. Like if you have someone that cleans out the room in sales or that does really well, you probably don't want to put them before the really newbie speaker who doesn't know what they're doing, who is going to be in big trouble if they're in that slot and not get what they need. So you got to think about what order you're going to put presenters on based on their sales ability, based on their experience, based on whatever the goals of the event are. So that should be thought about. Speaker order really matters. I already talked about breaks and selling times. Got to have that. If it feels too long when you're planning it, it's too long. So if your instinct tells you right away, wow, this feels like it's long, cut it down. For the most part, every new speaker underestimates how much time they need. So, and this is true for me, like I underestimated it last week, and I've been doing this for 11 years, and I may be even underestimating it now. Like I have so much to go still in all of this, I'm still underestimating myself. If it feels too long, it's too long. Go with your gut and say, all right, I'm going to cut back, or I'm going to understand this segment's going to be broken up. For the most part, every new speaker has too much stuff. They're trying to do too much, teach too much, make too much happen in a short amount of time. So don't be that person. Focus on simple goals. We'll talk more about that in future lessons too, because I know some of you probably have questions about this stuff. You're like, all right, how do I plan that? How do I make sure I'm not talking too much, saying too much, doing too much? Really important. Give time for the people to meet each other. Like most people at events are there because they want to meet other people. They want to network. They want to do that stuff. So there should be some devoted time in your agenda to make sure people have the time to do that. They have the time to meet you. They have the time to meet each other. Give people the chance to have experiences. If you're teaching them something, use experiential exercises and activities. Like give people time to bond. And then make sure that your sales time, despite all of these, the one thing that stays very secure and doesn't change is that any time for sales, for calls to action, for any of that stuff, it's not interrupted and it's not rushed. As I mentioned last week, that story of a speaker that's standing on stage and they're delivering in front of a room of 150 people, and the hotel person walks up to hand them a hotel bill while they're on stage. I've seen that happen before. During sales time, make sure that stuff's never interrupted or rushed as best you possibly can. Control your environment. It's so critical to think about. Make sure that time's never rushed. So let's talk about your event MC. I was an event MC for many, many years. In fact, I would argue most of you who probably know me as an event MC or an event host, which an event MC, again, could be an entire lesson. We're talking about this in the context of an event staging. Event MCs are super important to your event. So let's talk about that. What does your MC need to do? So you, as the speaker, are expected to show up and be the expert. You're the person that has the material. You're the person that knows your stuff. You're the person that's there to teach and deliver value and deliver content and then get the call to action going. Now, your MC is the person that should be handling all the little bitty details. So what does your MC do? You can take this down as a checklist, super important. They introduce you and any other speaker. So if they're going to introduce you or anyone else, they need to have bios, they need to have details, they need to have whatever else. And it's always best if you can to have them rehearse them. If they're reading from a cue card on stage, a lot of times that looks bad. Ideally, they get familiar with the content, they can deliver it. They can still have a cue card, but when someone reads, Ken Korse is a really good speaker, and he is someone that I like, and my friend... When that happens, it looks terrible. So you need to make sure that your MC has it on lock. They cover the logistics. You as the trainer, speaker, expert, whatever you are, should not be telling people when you can avoid it. In your first events, you might have to do this. But in general, it's great to have an MC handle all the little details. Where are the bathrooms? When's the break? Where's the food? What direction do people need to go? Parking? Whatever it is, the MC should handle that. The MC, it's really good if the MC has a different energy than the speaker. So if your speaker's really loud and vibrant, you don't want your MC to be like super tiny and quiet or anything, but it's good if they have a different type of energy. If they're a calmer type of person, if someone's a really vibrant, energetic type of person, or if you're someone that's really about the information and you might be more quiet and reserved, having a big energy MC or, first speaker that helps get the crowd pumped up and moving is great. A lot of the MCs I know are like hype men. So they get on stage and they hype the crowd up to get them going. I'm kind of a hype man type of MC myself. So MCs do that. And then they're part of the welcome crew. So your MC should be hanging out by the registration table or the sign-in table. And they should be listening just like anyone else on the team. So if they hear a question over and over again, if people want to know a detail over and over and over again, or people want specific things, your MC's like your little spy in the event, and they're listening for what people are saying, and they're telling you as the speaker, hey, I think you should talk about this, or everyone was asking about this. Or if there's a logistics detail, like no one could figure out where the bathroom was, or parking was confusing, or the venue told them something, an MC handles that stuff. So your MC is like your firefighter. They're making sure like all the details are in line. Everyone knows where they need to be. The MC's helping out. They're at the registration table. They're on stage. They're introducing people. They're your detail person. So that frees you up to be the person that takes the stage, and you're just amazing. Almost makes you like a celebrity. So get a hype man is what you really need. That's what your MC does. So 9, room setup. This is a big one. So I talked about the decorations and all that stuff. But let's just talk about rooms, because sometimes rooms are weird. Venues can be weird. Like you'll walk into a room, and I've had this happen before, and you'll be expecting, conference boardroom, and then all of a sudden you're in like a UFO. And you're like, why is this room circular? And what is this giant pole in the middle of the stage? And why is there a podium hanging from the ceiling? And what is going on in this room? Rooms are weird in venue spaces, especially cheap rooms. When you get started, they're weird. You're going to end up in rooms that are long, massive rectangles. And you're like, how do I deal with this? So your room set up and like standing in the room and again putting yourself in that participant chair and going, what's going to happen in this room is really important. So a couple things I want to mention, and I'm going to move me down again a little bit more because I'm covering some slides. So especially for those of you who are new, avoid stationary elements. So avoid a podium, Sticky elements on a stage. If there's something on a stage or on your stage or in front of you, a lot of times people tend to get stuck to it. You'll notice like speakers, even dynamic speakers, like there's like magnets in it and they get stuck to it and then they're like on the thing. And it's like, so avoid that stuff. It keeps you from connecting with your crowd. I actually hate podiums and would recommend no one ever use them. You want to engage with your people. Focus on the people first, not stuff on the stage. Even whiteboards sometimes can be a bit too sticky and people like are stuck to them or stuck on one side of the room. Try to avoid it so that you interact with the people. Big important thing in your room setup, if the speaker can walk out into the crowd or engage with the people, that's really important. So make sure they have the time or the ability to do that. I don't necessarily need a stage or like a stage, but if there is a stage, make sure there's stairs to walk down so they can interact with the people. I already talked about not using desks. Avoid using desks, especially for sales or opt-in events, theater style. Avoid the distractions. You want to get in that event room as early as you can. I put this in here. It's almost a guarantee it's going to be set up wrong. No matter what you tell people, like I worked with event teams that literally printed out diagrams that they gave to people and said, the room should look like this. Stage here, chairs here, sales table here, whatever. And we'd arrive and the chairs would be Spider-Man hanging from the ceiling and there'd be, lumber or something in the back of the room. And you'd just be like, the room setup's almost always going to be wrong, no matter what you tell the venue. Again, I think it's just that venues are busy, and so for the most part, a lot of times what you're expecting isn't going to be there, and they're not going to be prepared for it, and if that person's not on site, it's a huge issue. Understand how you're going to work with weird rooms. So if you have big, long rooms, you want to consider that. Like bring your crowd closer to you. You want to be able to engage with people. And then manage your distractions in advance. So when you see that a room's weird, when you see that it's long, when you see there's not space, when you see that people can't walk around, all those things, again, focus on that experience. Like I said, it's a really good habit to sit in the participant chair and think about how they're going to experience the event and how they're going to experience what you're doing. So I know that was a fire hose of information I've just given over the last 2 weeks. It's something that a lot of you are like, how do I answer all these questions? How do I put that stuff in order? And I brought this up at the beginning. I've actually brought this up like 6 or 7 times throughout this. Some of you need this organizer. You need to understand the answers to these questions, how to get yourself staged. You've watched this and you go, okay, I'm ready. I want to do my event, whether it's online, whether it's offline, whatever it is. You got to go to exploremomentum.com/preview. Pick up your organizer. Get it done. It asks you all the questions you need to say, what does your venue need to look like? Who's going to be on your stage? What are your goals? What are your calls to action? What are your sales? What are you going to say? How are you going to put together your PowerPoint? What do you need to have in the room? Like that big checklist of stuff. All the stuff I've referenced on this are a big list on the Perfect Preview Organizer. So if you don't have it, it's free. 30 pages. Free, baby. exploremomentum.com/preview. Grab that beast. Get it. Put it in your filing cabinet. Who has a filing cabinet anymore? Put it in your digital filing cabinet so that you have this organizer. You need it. exploremomentum.com/preview. I know that, Julia, you have it. I sent it to you before. So, Julia, please tell everyone about how amazing that organizer is, because I'm going to go back to it over and over and over again. Really important detail, but get that. I know I've covered so much. Oh, Julia has another question. If you have a keynote speaker, do you pay them? Do they pay you as a sponsor? How does this work? Man, Julia, with the bombshell questions. I think I could do a whole episode on the sponsorship and how to deal with outside speakers. In fact, I may do that. I'm going to take a note on that because these are really good questions, and speaker management at this point is such a critical piece of events at this point. Julia says it is amazing, filled with important information. Julia, you probably looked at that page 7 or 8 or whatever page that was on this, which is what I've talked about over the last 2 hours of Expert Momentum. So I'm going to give an answer to this, and then I'm going to promise that we're going to talk about this as well, because speaker and partner management during an event, I kind of talked about event partners in the previous weeks, but you can do it either way. So the difference is, if someone calls themselves a keynote speaker, most of the time that means they're expecting to get paid. That normally means that they're a speaker that does it for a flat rate, or they do it, so if they're a keynote or they're a conference speaker or they're, something like that, generally they're expecting to get paid. And generally it's because they're some sort of celebrity, or they're someone that, they're well known enough in their field and what they do that they're getting, a flat fee for that, and they're not necessarily looking for the sales. The way that I prefer the most at this point is that I like to do I like to incentivize. So I like to give stage time and then share the results. So if I'm working with someone that I know is going to have great information and they're going to have a great offer, they're going to have something that works with my community, I normally want to partner, and whatever that person sells to my, people at my event, we're going to share the profit, whether it's 50-50 or sometimes it's more than that, depending on how, experienced you are, or whether people know they can count on you for revenue. So we might split the profits on your sale as another way to do it. And then sometimes people do pay as sponsors for stages. So all three of those are legitimate ways for you to get on a stage, to be a keynote and just get paid for it, to do, to basically sell from the stage and do it that way, or to buy your way onto stages as a sponsor. And a lot of times, if you can buy your way onto stages early on, you should do that, because then that way you are guaranteed to get in front of people that you wouldn't be able to get in front of before. And so that's really, really important. Julia, here's what I learned today. Hire a great event planner. Yes, a great event planner can help you with a lot of these details. However, and that's why I called this event set and event staging, not necessarily just event planning. Many event planners, or people that you would hire as event planners, do not know the things that I've covered these last 2 weeks. They might handle some of the logistical pieces. They might handle the chairs in the room. They might handle the room diagram. They might help you get the venue space. They might help you negotiate the food and all that stuff. But a lot of event planners, and I'm sure that our good friend Linda, who's out there who might watch these at some point, realizes event planners, or people with that title, often do not know these steps about signs, these steps about product tables, these steps about registration. A lot of times they don't know it, and they may not know to put those details together. So if you're going to work with an event specialist or an event person, you need to make sure that they are familiar with your industry, or familiar with your goals and what you're trying to do, because if they're not, it can actually be a problem. I've worked with plenty of event planners who knew nothing about what we were trying to do, and that actually caused an enormous issue. So it's really important to say, like, does the event planner that you want to work with understand your industry? If they don't, and they don't understand this type of event, they may not know how to help you. They may not know these details. And that's why you know me. That's why I'm here to train you on all these little things that your event planner might know. Even worse, one other thing. God, I'm going a little over. I normally don't do this, but I'm a few minutes over. But one other thing, and this is a word to the wise for those of you who have been waiting around and you want this super bonus tip. The super bonus tip is, a lot of times your event planner is incentivized by the venues to sell you extra stuff. So keep that in mind. Your event planner, a lot of times, makes extra money by making you spend extra money. So a lot of times your event planner is getting a kickback on the hotel room. They're getting a kickback on the technology costs. They're getting a kickback on your printouts. They're getting a kickback, so they're incentivized to sell you stuff. So they may intentionally, and I'm not going to say not everyone's disreputable, not everyone's dishonest, like a lot of people are not like this, but I do have to be realistic that a lot of times event planners build their packages because they know they're going to make an additional 30, 40, 50, whatever percent on your event fees. So a lot of times your event planner, or your person that does that, is making a lot of money. That's like, I know event planners who make more off their commissions on events than they make from the clients. So they may represent you, but at the end of the day, the event planner is representing the hotel, or they're representing the conference center, or they're representing that person. So the event planners a lot of times make a lot of money charging you extra money. And at the end of the day, it's up to you to manage your event costs, to understand the way things are going. If something smells wrong when it comes to your event, it probably is. This is why I said, I know a lot of people are like, I don't want to buy my own AV setup. I don't want to have my screen. I don't want to do that. But trust me, these are the tips and the things that you need to know. But that said, a great event planner, here's the other side of that, and we talked about Linda as a great example of that. The other side of that is that a lot of times your event planner, you want to pay them that much. Like, you want them to get their cuts, you want them to get their commission, you want them to book you in the best places, because they can skip the lines, they can get you cheaper vendors, they can get people. So I know I gave the negative side of that, but there is a positive side that a lot of times a great event planner is worth their weight in gold. And this is why people that are really good at doing these types of events, like we've talked about Linda, I got to tag her in this because we've talked about her so much. People that do this really, really well, like Linda, they tend to be everywhere. You look at the back of every event room and they tend to be everywhere. And so in this case, someone like Linda is everywhere. She does all the events. You see her at everything because people realize they're going to get the value for their dollar. They're going to have the details in order, all those things. So huge. It's friggin' huge. And so that's how we do it. It's always friggin' huge here on Expert Momentum. This went a little bit over. Sorry about that. I normally don't go over the hour. If I were on the radio, they'd be kicking my butt off the air right now. But this is my station. You don't kick me off Expert Momentum. This is my station. I do what I want. So I'm here every week, every Tuesday. It's getting weird in here right now. It's hot. I'm going to turn on the air conditioner in this room. It's hot outside. It's hot in Boston. Let's get your events rolling. I'm going to do that. I want to talk about the sponsorship topic and the expert topic and all that stuff. But for now, jam to the Expert Momentum theme song. And I will see you next week, my friends. Stay tuned.